What is up, you all? Ivy here, and you're watching new episode of Metal Mixing Guide podcast. Today I'm about to demonstrate my attempt on sound replication of latest Alpha Wolf album, A Quiet Place to Die. Same as always, this project is available for members of basic support tier on my Patreon. File pack for this video includes set of templates for Cubase and Reaper, set of custom impulses, reamping patches, contact snapshots, and other essential presets for most of the modules I use. You will also get link to unlisted video with complete review of every single setting, and of course access to all of my other projects. The same is also relevant for higher level tiers that I offer. All in all, it really helps to achieve my goals in improving quality of my productions, not even saying that your support made it possible for me to make these videos in the first place. So if you're willing to join, I'll put a link in the description. And right before we start, I'd wanted to thank my man Syar for covering me with recording guitar parts for this video. This guy can handle guitar tracking really well, so if you ever feel a need for such service, his links will be in the pinned comment. Now with all that being said, let's start the actual shit. First stop, guitar reamping project. Let's check this out. Let's start from rhythm guitars. What we have here is Hardpan Quadro track united under rhythm guitar bus. All the tracks are processed in a same way. Revolver 4 with diesel head and screamer pedal in front is our main source of distortion. Right after I use pulse, loaded with custom impulse in a roll of cabinet. Important to say that there is subtle tone deviation between left and right guitars, so each pair is associated with its own impulse. Everything else is going to be the same. Anyways, processing chain is closing up with multiband compressor and reverb. Compressor will tame resonances from palm muting, and reverb will give our guitars slightly more natural feeling. Now entire pack goes to rhythm guitar bus for final tone stabilization. Our mix will be heavily compressed, so it's super important to properly polish the stems to avoid consequences. First two elements will stabilize jumping low end of the sum, all for the sake of clipping reduction. Soothe pretty much hunts for particular resonances, and multiband compressor doing the same, only in a more round way. I used some pre-EQ as a compensation for further low-end losses. Ozone exciter glues everything together with really nice tape saturation. We will also get some more gluing from limiter, but its primary purpose is to get rid of unstable peaks and allow for transparent work of master compressors. Last 2 units of Soothe will polish the mid-range. Next in line, Lead Shimmer. This track is based on right rhythm guitar processing, so we have same impulse and same revolver patch. The only difference is that I use subtle mixture of 2 octavers to add some colors. After that, we have mid-range isolating EQ, chorus, reverb, and some more filtering on top. Last element in this chain is Soothe with pretty extreme reduction across the entire spectrum. As a result, we can keep this track loud and transparent at the same time. Now other lead track is somewhat the same, I just messed with sound a little more. That includes additional chorus pedal in front of the amp. Totally different impulse. Same chorus and soothe as we previously used. Shorter reverb, this time without full mix amount. And what I do next is pretty much spectrum stabilization together with slight reduction of stereo width. All in all, it makes our lead well prepared for the final mix. We're done with guitars, so it's time to export the stems. But before you do, make sure to use maximum oversampling setting for limiter and exciter. The export should be done in multi-out mode, from tracks and channels with export marker in their name. I suggest to go for 32-bit floating point for all exports of Submaster projects. Next in line, bass project. Check this shit. This time we're gonna use second version of Chronos Bass, rework of original library that I've made back in 2017. With strong support from my Patreon community, I was able to dedicate several months of my life exclusively to delivering this instrument. Performed and recorded by Costas Spades, this library covers entire fretboard of his Fender Precision bass, with great amount of samples per note. Main articulation contains 15 unique hits per cycle, providing smooth sample flow. You're very unlikely to notice how it starts repeating itself, even if all you do is constantly downpicking the same note. Noise-free, it can be passed through the nastiest distortion and still sound clean and full. Exclusively for second version I did solid rework of lower notes. All of them are now associated with 5th string, as I found that old 6th string didn't sound very good. Library comes in two forms. Automatic patch for easy programming in the range of predefined note pattern, and manual mode for those who want to have access to the entire fretboard. Now the best part about it is that this instrument is completely free, so you can grab your copy right now by following link in the video description. Anyways, back to the project. Before we'll go for any demonstrations, let me explain how the entire thing works. First of all, I use negative time offset on MIDI track. In average it takes about 16 milliseconds for string to start ringing, so with this offset we basically compensate for that, providing for better timing in the mix. Separate string outputs of Chronos are all routed to DI correction bus. Name pretty much speaks for itself. Extreme tone shaping with Pro Q allows for proper work of distortion pedals. 2 units of soothe will stabilize the low end, allowing for smoother transitions between samples. Declicker module is here to get rid of occasional clicks. Most of the time it happens on note-off articulations, and since I was unable to figure out the cause of it, I just used Declicker to be protected from them shits. Since this module causes great playback delay, I will only activate it right before export. Now we split our DI for parallel processing on B7K and Screamer channels. First one is pretty much the bulk of our tone, done with Microtube's Ultra pedal. And second channel is heavily driven mid-focused overlay, made by Treble Booster and Screamer pedals, together with filtering EQ afterwards. Both channels face each other on cabinet switch bus. Our bass exciter will force low-end fundamental frequency associated with low G note. Next thing is custom impulse to form rough image of our tone. It's all dirty and unstable, so I use 4 units of soothe to clean up all the mess. Second, our bass brings back those low-end fundamentals, though this time it's done on top of much more stable signal. Last element is basically a cabinet switcher. These cabinets are variations of bass tones of original album. First one is associated with aggressive mid-range that cuts through the mix really well. Second cabinet has much bigger scooped sounding. You can switch between them with automation of balance controller like I did, to force tonal contrast between two sections of this demo. Signal then goes to bass bus for final polishing and stabilization. The overall idea behind this chain is the same as we've had on rhythm guitar bus. Pre-compensation of low end. Stabilization with soothe and multiband compressor. Subtle limiting of occasional peaks. And final tone shaping with EQ and 2 units of soothe. We're done with the bass, so it's time to export the stem and proceed with next stage. Again, make sure to use maximum oversampling, and also don't forget to activate Declicker. Now it's time for final element of our mix, the drums. This model is based on modern metal drum kit project that I've made several months ago, so if you want to get proper context head up to that video. As for now I'm only going to focus on changes. Since this project have major playback delay and very complex processing models, I will only do processing comparisons of entire chains, otherwise we'll end up with stuttering mess which won't give you objective view anyways. I think best thing I can do, is to do volume compensation of bypass chains on the video editing stage. When I do so, you'll see level boost value in the bottom right corner. First deviation from original library is Contact Instrument Set. I used hi-hat from Modern and Massive because it worked better in this context. Second addition is Ghost Snare Layer. It's basically copy of Main Invasion Snare, only lower in volume. In this case note that triggers the actual hit, is unrelated to any other articulations, meaning getting low volume snare hit without support of triggers. It can be useful for programming ghost notes, as original snare can't really be soft on low velocity values. Now the processing. First change is related to kick dry track. I used Impulse for baseline tone matching. Multiband compressor and expand mode will enhance high-end transient. And new equalizer on kick room bus is basically matching of side information from original kick. Processing of kick export bus is all new. CLA76 together with SSL compressor is used to form the attack and gains some density. Slight boost of low end will force proper fundamental frequency. Decapitator with heavy drive and parallel mode will make the kick more aggressive, helping it to better cut through the mix. Removing side information below 200 Hz will make our lows more focused. Ozone low end focus is shortening attack on lows, allowing for our kick to be tight and punchy. Another impulse then finishes tone crafting work. Last EQ in this chain is pretty much hotfix, as I found that kick drum sounded too aggressive on some audio systems. Moving on to snare. Dry track have new multi-bin compressor. Same as previous one, it also works in expand mode, though this time it will slowly tame noisy high-end tail. For snare room, I added SSL compressor, to get better focus on attack. On top of that we have spectrum cleaning EQ, which is pretty much top-down move to make our room transparent. Snare bus chain starts from 3 units of soothe. Each one is targeting for particular resonance that I don't need. Spectrum matching impulse. Another resonance fixing soothe unit. SSL compressor to form the attack. Little fix of spectrum. Another soothe unit is basically pre-correction move for NLS channel. We're going to use it in a role of clipper to unload master processing chains. Since most of the peak energy will be replaced with saturation, taming it down in front of NLS helps to avoid harsh sounding. And last EQ is removing side low-end information, giving us proper focus in the mix. In order to recreate tail and space feeling of original snare, I arrange sends to 2 reverb tracks. First one is Valhalla Uber mod with one of my favorite presets. Mid-range cleaning soothe together with high-pass filter afterwards. This one will be background support for our snare and also primary reverberation source for kick and cymbals. Other reverb is primary snare space generator. Done with Pro or with full mix amount and phase linear matching of original snare drums side information. Moving on to Tom's bus. Right of the bat I used impulse for spectrum matching. Soothe to get control on mid-range boxness. Multi-bin compressor and expand mode is pre-correction move to reduce low-end ringing in front of SSL, which helps to get proper density in the mix. NLS channel and Pro L are used to reduce dynamic range and avoid clipping artifacts on master chain. Tom's reverb is based on same Valhalla preset we used on snare, followed by tone matching and mid-range isolating equalizers. What's left is a set of symbol-related elements. Export buses for each one of them will be minor timber fix, together with complicated sidechain compression. Each SSL compressor will receive information from all three buses of a sub-export level. As a result, we can have these tracks separated in final mix, yet it will sound as if they are united with bus compression. Pro-C units are controlled with sense from kick and snare. It will help to further link the elements of our drum kit together. The only deviation from this processing set is additional soothe on overhead's export bus. I figured that it was a little too noisy and dirty. Last note, all sub-export level buses will have plus 15 decibels gain stage at the end. It's related to the way I build this project, so just ignore it. Processing of overheads is pretty straightforward. Spectrum matching with custom impulse and cleaning all the mess with chain of soothe units. Processing of head is somewhat similar, only this time I used other impulse soothe units targeting for different problematic spectrum parts, followed by subtle timbre fix at the very end. Right, pretty much remains as it was. Only thing I added is this soothe unit to get rid of particular resonance. And that's really it. Once the part is programmed, I suggest to switch to maximum oversampling on Pro-C for symbol export buses, also use maximum oversampling on final limiter of Tom's bus. Make sure that all soothe units will have maximum oversampling and best resolution for offline processing. Sure, it will take much more time to execute, but trust me, it will make a solid difference. The export itself should be done in multi-out mode, from tracks with EXP marked in their names. Make sure to use 32-bit floating point to avoid clipping. Now it's time for master project. You already know how it sounds from the intro. All our stems are loaded there and there is no any processing aside from two side chain compressors. Driven by kick and snare, they will shortly duck center of guitars and bass, providing subtle linking between instruments. All drum tracks are united under related bus, where I use NLSN Pro L in clipping mode. Altogether it helps to gain maximum loudness of our drums so they can properly face other parts of the mix. This bus together with other stems then go to mix bus. Its main purpose is uniting all the parts with reverb, saturation and compression. Aside from that, I also use soothe to stabilize low end some of kick and bass. Without this move, master limiter would give us very unpleasant compression artifacts. After all of that, the signal goes to limiter bus. First thing in chain is Pro L in clipper mode, with slightest adjustment to look ahead controller, just to make it little bit less aggressive. The point of this module is to partially unload final limiter by cutting most of the peaks. 2 units of Soothe will smoothly tame excessive resonances of related spectrum parts. Just make our mix cleaner. Low pass filter around 17 kHz will cut off byproducts of heavy compression. We're very unlikely to hear that top end anyways, plus this move really helps with translation to aggressive playback sources like earbuds. Now final limiter. I really let it dig into pre-compressed sound. About 2 or 3 decibels of gain reduction. However, since we use all-round mode, it will work very smooth. Having True Peak activated will help to reduce the possibility of clipping. Since our project use pretty extreme compression styles, I strongly suggest to use maximum oversampling settings on all the limiters and saturators. All for the sake of aliasing reduction. Just make sure not to use True Peak limiting anywhere aside from final limiter. And so guys, that's pretty much it for this video. Feel free to leave a comment if you have any questions. Thanks for watching. I'll see you soon in the next one.